Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. The night began with laughter. Fake, forced laughter that echoed through the lavish glow of chandeliers. Michael Hayes stood near the marble bar, swirling his drink slowly, his eyes fixed on his wife, Claire. She was radiant, effortlessly charming, her hand resting just a bit too long on another man's arm. Ryan Calloway, one of Michael's colleagues from the firm. It wasn't the first time. Claire had a way of drawing attention wherever she went. Her laughter, her confidence, the way she leaned in close during conversation as though every word deserved intimacy. And Michael, once proud of her magnetism, had learned to fear it. When Ryan whispered something and Claire giggled, brushing his shoulder, Michael felt that dull, familiar sting in his chest. He didn't make a scene. He never did. Instead, he smiled politely, pretending to scroll through his phone. Later that night, in the car ride home, the silence between them was unbearable. Street lights flickered across her face, beautiful, cold, and unreadable. "You're quiet," she said finally, glancing at him. He kept his eyes on the road. "You were awfully close with Ryan tonight." Claire rolled her eyes and let out a small, mocking laugh. "Oh, come on, Michael. Don't be dramatic. It's just innocent flirting." Her words hit harder than any argument ever could. He gripped the steering wheel, forcing himself to breathe evenly. "Innocent," he said softly. "There's nothing innocent about making your husband feel like a stranger in the room." "Oh, please," she said, turning her gaze out the window. "You overthink everything. Maybe if you showed a little confidence, you wouldn't feel so threatened." He wanted to respond, but he didn't. Not then. Instead, he let the words sink deep, where they would quietly burn. Over the following weeks, something inside Michael shifted. He still brought her morning coffee. He still smiled when she left for her yoga classes. But his silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was strategy. Claire had grown comfortable. Too comfortable. Her late nights out with friends became routine. Her phone buzzed more often, and she was quick to turn the screen away. But Michael was no fool. He was a financial analyst, detail-oriented, patient, methodical. He started noticing things. Repeated calls from an unknown number, restaurant receipts for two, a faint trace of cologne that wasn't his. One evening, as she was getting ready for another girl's night, he gently kissed her cheek and said, "You look stunning tonight." She smiled, surprised by his calmness. "See? That's better. Try not to wait up, okay?" The door closed behind her. 10 minutes later, Michael grabbed his jacket, his phone, and the small tracking device he'd quietly attached under her car last week. The map on his phone lit up. She wasn't heading downtown where her friend lived. She was going to the Marina Grand Hotel. He followed in silence, parking across the street, heart pounding, headlights off. From the shadows, he watched her step out of the car, fix her hair, and walk straight into the hotel lobby, where Ryan Calloway was already waiting. They embraced like lovers who had done this before. Michael didn't move. He didn't shout. He didn't storm in. Instead, he took photos, quiet, damning proof that told him everything he needed to know. When he returned home, he didn't cry. He sat at his desk, looked at their framed wedding photo, and whispered, "So much for innocent." He opened his laptop and began typing. Not a message, not an argument, but a plan. A week later, Claire would walk into a house that no longer belonged to her, and she would finally learn that her husband's silence was never weakness. The morning after the hotel revelation, Michael woke before dawn. He didn't sleep much, not from heartbreak anymore, but from clarity, the kind that comes when you finally accepted the truth. He brewed his coffee like always, the same stainless steel mug she'd once gifted him when they were happy. The smell filled the kitchen, warm and calm, a painful contrast to the storm in his chest. Claire came down around 8, hair perfectly curled, humming as if nothing in the world could bother her. "You're up early," she said, grabbing her protein shake from the fridge. "Yeah," he replied evenly. "Long week ahead." She smiled distractedly and scrolled through her phone. Michael noticed her expression soften at one particular message, the same number that had appeared on his phone tracker. Her thumb hovered over the screen, and a small smirk crossed her lips. He didn't say a word. Over the next few days, Michael maintained the perfect act. The calm husband, the quiet listener, the man she believed she could manipulate without consequence. But behind that composure, he was laying groundwork, quietly, meticulously. First, he met with an attorney. He brought everything: the photos, the timestamps, the phone records he'd managed to trace through a shared account. His lawyer, a woman named Julia Grant, stared at the evidence for a long moment before saying, "You've built a solid case, Michael. You'll walk out of this clean." He nodded. "I don't want to ruin her. I just want the truth to cost her something." And that was exactly what he planned to do. Claire's world revolved around appearances. She was a marketing consultant, charming, social, always craving attention. Every photo she posted was curated. Every outfit meant to show she was thriving. Her reputation was her lifeline. So Michael targeted that carefully. At first, he withdrew his affection. Subtly. No more morning coffee waiting for her. No more goodnight texts. When she asked if something was wrong, he smiled and said, "Just tired lately." She shrugged it off, until the silence became too steady, too cold. By the end of the month, Michael had moved part of his savings into a separate account. Their joint cards were disconnected, and while she spent her nights with Ryan, he met with realtors, investors, and his attorney again. He was building his escape, brick by brick, without a single confrontation. The confrontation came on its own. One Saturday morning, Claire returned home early from what she claimed was a client brunch. She found Michael in the living room, surrounded by manila envelopes, signing papers. "What's all this?" she asked, laughing lightly. "You look serious." Michael didn't answer right away. He closed one folder carefully, placed the pen down, and looked up at her. "I've been thinking a lot lately," he said calmly. "About us. About what's real and what's just habit." Claire tilted her head, uneasy. "What are you talking about?" "I used to think your flirting was harmless," he continued, voice steady, "until I realized the only one getting hurt was me." She rolled her eyes, exasperated. "Michael, we've talked about this. You take everything too seriously. You can't expect me to be rude to people just because they like me." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "You weren't just being polite, Claire. You were meeting Ryan at hotels." Her face froze. "What?" "Marina Grand. Room 415. Saturday, 8:37 p.m. He recited, his tone surgical. "You wore the blue dress I bought you for our anniversary." The color drained from her face. "You followed me." "I didn't have to," he said. "You left enough proof to fill a folder." He tapped the stack of papers beside him. "I was your husband, not your fool." Claire's voice trembled between anger and panic. "So what now? You want to humiliate me? Get revenge?" He stood, walked to her, and handed her an envelope. "No, I just want you to sign." She blinked down at the papers, confusion turning to disbelief. "Divorce. Don't be dramatic," he said softly, repeating her own words back with cutting precision. "It's just paperwork." For a moment, she stood frozen. Then, her facade cracked, just slightly. "You're serious?" "I've never been more serious." He looked at her one last time. "You made your choices. Now I'm making mine." But Michael wasn't finished. His revenge wasn't loud or cruel. It was poetic, quiet justice delivered through dignity. In the days that followed, Claire tried everything. Sweet texts, calls late at night, pleased to talk, but he didn't respond. Instead, he finalized every legal document and moved out of their home into a new apartment overlooking the city. At work, rumors began to spread. Someone had leaked photos, not the explicit kind, but enough to show Claire and Ryan holding hands at the hotel lobby. Just a moment frozen in time. Enough to whisper doubt through the firm. Ryan resigned a week later. Claire's professional image shattered overnight. Clients withdrew, projects paused, and her perfect reputation began to unravel. Michael didn't gloat. He didn't post. He didn't brag. He simply watched from a distance as the woman who'd once mocked his pain finally understood it. And when she showed up at his new place one rainy evening, makeup smudged, umbrella trembling in her hand, all she could say was, "Can we talk?" Michael opened the door halfway, the divorce papers already finalized and mailed. His voice was calm, almost kind. "There's nothing left to say, Claire. You told me not to be dramatic, and I'm not. I'm just done." Then he closed the door, and for the first time in years, he finally felt peace. The days after their separation were strangely quiet. Michael had expected sadness, maybe even regret. But what he felt instead was relief, like breathing fresh air after years in a sealed room. His new apartment wasn't fancy, just 2 bedrooms, clean walls, a balcony overlooking the skyline. It was peaceful. Every morning he'd make his own breakfast, open the blinds, and play soft jazz while getting ready for work. For the first time in years, he wasn't walking on eggshells. He found rhythm again. He started jogging in the mornings, volunteering at a weekend shelter, and spending time with his younger sister, Emma, who had long warned him about Claire's manipulation. "You seem lighter," Emma said one afternoon over coffee. "Like the old you's finally back." Michael smiled faintly. "Guess I had to lose the wrong person to find myself again." But peace didn't come without echoes. Claire's voice still haunted him sometimes. The laughter, the dismissive tone, the way she made him feel small. Yet every time those memories surfaced, he reminded himself how far he'd come. He was no longer the man who accepted disrespect disguised as love. Meanwhile, Claire's perfect world was crumbling. Her firm had suspended her after the hotel photos surfaced. Ryan had ghosted her, moving to another city after his resignation. Friends stopped inviting her to events, worried about their own reputations. Even her landlord asked her to vacate early after a noise complaint turned ugly. For the first time in her adult life, Claire had to face silence, the kind that doesn't come from peace but from isolation. She missed the stability she'd once taken for granted, the steady man who'd brewed her coffee, asked about her day, and loved her with quiet loyalty. And she missed control, the way she'd once been able to twist any argument into her favor. That power was gone now. Late one evening, she stood outside Michael's new apartment again, clutching an umbrella against the drizzle. Through the window, she could see him reading, calm and focused. There was a warmth about him she hadn't noticed before. Maybe it was always there, and she'd been too busy chasing admiration to see it. When she knocked, he didn't answer. When she texted, he didn't reply. She wrote a long email once, apologies, memories, empty promises, but the only response was a single sentence. "Some mistakes don't deserve another chance." That line broke her. Michael didn't take pleasure in her suffering. Revenge, to him, wasn't about making her hurt. It was about showing her what she'd thrown away. In the months that followed, he got promoted. His quiet dedication was finally recognized at work. He even met someone new, Lena, a kind, soft-spoken nurse he met through his volunteer group. She wasn't flashy or loud. She didn't play games. She listened, smiled, and made him feel seen in ways Claire never had. One evening, as they watched the sunset from his balcony, Lena said, "You know, you look like a man who's learned how to let go." Michael smiled faintly. Maybe that's the secret. Stop chasing closure and start living like it's already here. Weeks later, Claire saw a photo online. Michael and Lena at a charity event, smiling, natural, at peace. It wasn't posed. It wasn't performative. It was real. For the first time, she understood what innocent truly meant. Not the lies she used to justify her actions, but the quiet, pure love she destroyed because she thought she'd never lose it. But Michael didn't look back anymore. He'd written his final chapter with grace, not anger. His revenge wasn't loud. It was his peace. And when he walked away that night with the papers signed, he hadn't just ended a marriage. He'd reclaimed himself. Months passed, and the seasons began to change. The city's trees were lined with amber leaves when Michael realized he hadn't thought about Claire in weeks. Not out of bitterness, but because life had finally moved forward. He spent his mornings jogging by the park, evenings with Lena cooking simple dinners, and weekends volunteering at the shelter. There was laughter again, quiet, genuine laughter that didn't feel forced or heavy. His world had shrunk to things that mattered: peace, gratitude, and sincerity. One evening, while helping organize a fundraiser, he noticed a familiar face among the crowd. Claire stood at the edge of the hall, dressed modestly, holding a donation envelope. She looked thinner, quieter, like someone who had finally run out of excuses. Their eyes met. Neither of them moved for a moment. Finally, she approached, her voice trembling. "Michael." He set the clipboard down. "Claire." She hesitated, her confidence gone. "You look different." "So do you," he replied gently. "I wanted to come and say thank you," she said, twisting her hands. for not destroying me when you could have. I deserved worse. He looked at her for a long time. I didn't need to destroy you, Claire. Life has a way of showing people who they really are. I just stepped aside. Her eyes filled with regret. I thought I was being independent, you know? Fun free. I didn't realize I was pushing away the only person who actually cared. Michael nodded slowly. We all learn. Sometimes too late. There was no hatred in his tone, just truth. She took a shaky breath. I'm not here to ask for you back. I know I lost that right. I just wanted you to know I finally understand what you meant about respect. He offered a faint, sad smile. I hope you find peace, Claire. Everyone deserves that, eventually. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to say more, but then she nodded and walked away. Her steps were slow, deliberate, like someone finally accepting the cost of their choices. Later that night, Michael stood on the balcony of his apartment, city lights flickering below. Lena joined him, resting her head on his shoulder. Was that her? She asked quietly. He nodded. Yeah. You okay? I am, he said, looking out over the skyline. For the first time in a long time, I really am. Lena smiled softly. You handled it with grace. Not everyone could. Michael exhaled, feeling the last of the old weight lift from his chest. Anger's easy. Peace takes work. They stood in silence for a while, the cool breeze brushing against them, carrying away the echoes of what once was. A few weeks later, Michael received a handwritten note in the mail. It was from Claire. Michael, I've started therapy. I'm trying to be someone I can respect again. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted to thank you for ending things with dignity instead of cruelty. You taught me what real love looks like by walking away from the wrong kind. Claire. He read it once, folded it carefully, and placed it in a drawer. Not to remember the pain, but to remind himself of how far he'd come. In the end, Michael didn't win by revenge. He won by peace, by rebuilding a life that didn't depend on anyone else's validation. And sometimes, that's the best kind of revenge there is. Not anger, not payback, just the quiet, steady strength of finally being free.